My husband insisted I take his special vitamins every single night, claiming he wanted to take care of me. One night, I pretended to swallow the pill and forced myself to stay awake. I watched him sneak out of our bedroom at 2 a.m. I followed him downstairs and heard his mother whisper, "Is she out cold yet? We need that inheritance money now." Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, grab a warm cup of tea and get comfortable. I'd love to know what time of day you're watching this video. Please comment M for morning, A for afternoon, or E for evening. Now, let me take you into this story. I am Heather. I am 34 years old, and I am a high school teacher living in a suburb of Atlanta. For 2 years, I thought I was living in a fairy tale. I thought I had found my person. You know, that one human being who would protect me, cherish me, and stand by me through anything. My husband, Blake, was everything I thought I wanted. He was attentive. He was caring. He was always making sure I was okay, always checking in on me. But looking back now, I realize that what I thought was love was actually surveillance. What I thought was care was actually control. And trust can be the most dangerous thing you give someone. Because what I discovered when I finally opened my eyes to what was happening in my own home, in my own basement, shattered everything. It started with the vitamins. Every single night at 10 p.m., Blake would bring me a glass of water and 2 blue capsules. He called them his special blend to help with my stress and sleep. He would sit on the edge of the bed, stroke my hair, and watch me swallow them. He wouldn't leave until he saw my throat move. "Got to keep my baby healthy," he'd say with that smile that used to make my heart melt. But on this specific Tuesday night, something felt wrong. The air in the house felt heavy, charged with a static electricity I couldn't explain. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was God whispering in my ear. But when Blake handed me the pills, I didn't swallow them. I put them in my mouth, took a sip of water, and then, the moment he turned to put the glass on the nightstand, I slid the capsules under my tongue. I made a show of swallowing hard. I smiled at him. He kissed my forehead, whispered sweet dreams, Heather, and turned off the lamp. I waited until his breathing deepened, until I was sure he was asleep, and then I spit the dissolving, bitter mess into a tissue I had hidden in my palm. The hardest part was staying awake. Even without the full dose, my body was conditioned to shut down. My eyelids felt like lead weights. I had to dig my fingernails into my palms until I broke the skin just to keep the darkness at bay. I lay there in the silence of our suburban home, listening to the settling of the house, the hum of the refrigerator downstairs, the beating of my own terrified heart. At 1:58 a.m., Blake moved. He didn't toss and turn like someone having a bad dream. He sat up with precision. He moved silently, sliding out from under the duvet like a shadow. He didn't look at me. He didn't check the time. It was as if he had an internal alarm clock set for evil. I kept my breathing even, my eyes shut to mere slits. I watched him pull on a pair of dark sweatpants and a black t-shirt. He grabbed his phone from the nightstand. Then, he did something that made my stomach turn. He leaned over me, shone the flashlight from his phone directly into my eyes for a split second, and waited. I didn't flinch. I forced my body to be dead weight. I let my jaw go slack. Satisfied that I was unconscious, he left the room. I waited 60 seconds. I counted them in my head. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. When I reached 60, I slid out of bed. My legs were shaking so bad I thought I would collapse, but adrenaline is a powerful fuel. I crept to the bedroom door and peeked into the hallway. It was empty. But I saw a faint, flickering light coming from the bottom of the stairs. The basement door, which we usually kept closed because it was just unfinished storage space, was slightly ajar. I walked down the hallway. I knew where every squeaky floorboard was in this house. I stepped over the third plank from the wall. I hugged the banister as I descended the stairs. The air grew colder as I went down. And then, I heard voices. Plural. Blake wasn't alone. I froze on the second to last step. Through the crack in the door, I could see a sliver of the basement. Blake was standing there, but he wasn't looking at boxes or fixing the furnace. He was setting up a tripod. On top of it was a high-end camera, the kind professional photographers use. And on a table next to him was a laptop, its screen glowing with a chat room interface that was scrolling so fast I couldn't read the text. But it was the voice coming from the speakerphone on the desk that made my blood turn to ice. It was a voice I knew better than my own mother's. It was Patricia. My mother-in-law. Is she out cold yet? Patricia's voice rasped through the speaker, sounding impatient and cruel. We have VIPs waiting, Blake. We need that inheritance money now. The loan sharks aren't going to wait another week. I slapped a hand over my mouth to stifle a scream. My knees buckled, and I had to grab the doorframe to stop myself from falling. My husband wasn't just having an affair. He wasn't just sneaking a midnight snack. He was down there with his mother, talking about my inheritance and some kind of VIPs while I was supposed to be comatose upstairs. The reality of what I was seeing was too big to process. It was like looking directly at the sun. It burned. But I knew, in that terrifying moment, that if I made a sound, if I let them know I was awake, I might not live to see the sunrise. Before I continue with what I saw on that computer screen, because trust me, it gets so much worse, I want to take a second to thank you for listening. If you are watching this, please, drop a comment down below telling me what city or state you are watching from. It helps me feel less alone to know there are real people out there hearing my truth. Now, let me tell you about the money, and why my husband and his mother were so desperate to destroy me. To understand why Blake and Patricia were in my basement plotting my demise, you have to understand where I came from. I didn't have a normal childhood. My parents died in a car accident when I was 4 years old. I don't remember them, not really. I just have pictures and a vague sense of warmth when I think about them. I was raised by my grandmother, Nana Rose. She was a steel magnolia of a woman, tough, sharp, and incredibly protective. She was also quietly wealthy. She had invested wisely in real estate back in the 70s, and by the time I was growing up, she had built a small fortune. Nana Rose loved me, but she was terrified that people would use me. Heather, she used to say, tapping her cane on the floor, men will see your soft heart and your bank account, and they will try to drain both. You have to be smarter than they are. When Nana Rose passed away 5 years ago, she left me everything. But she was smart. She locked the inheritance up in a trust with very specific conditions. I could access the interest for daily living, but the bulk of the principal, millions of dollars, would only be released to me fully under 2 conditions: I turned 40 years old, or I had been happily married to the same man for 5 consecutive years. And there was a catch, a safety clause she called it. If I were deemed mentally incapacitated or unable to care for myself, my legal guardian or spouse would gain control of the funds to manage my care. I was 29 when she died. I was lonely. I was grieving. And that's when Blake walked into my life. We met at a coffee shop. Cliché, I know. I was crying over a book of poetry, and he offered me a napkin and a joke. He was charming. He was a software engineer, he said. He seemed stable. He seemed kind. He didn't ask about money. He drove a modest car. He seemed to love me for me. We dated for a year. It was a whirlwind. He made me feel safe. For an orphan who had always felt like a guest in the world, Blake made me feel like I had finally come home. When he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. I wanted a family. I wanted to belong. I remember the first time I met Patricia. She was cold at first, looking down her nose at my teaching job and my modest apartment. But the moment Blake mentioned, casually, of course, that I had a trust fund managed by a lawyer, her entire demeanor shifted. it wasn't subtle. It was like a shark smelling blood in the water. Suddenly, I was her precious daughter. She started planning the wedding, insisting on expensive venues, telling me I deserved the best. I thought she was just being motherly. I was so desperate for a mother figure that I ignored the dollar signs in her eyes. On our wedding day, Blake was perfect. He cried when I walked down the aisle. He held my hands and promised to protect me, to cherish me, to handle the hard parts of life so I wouldn't have to. "I don't care about the money, Heather," he had told me the night before, when we were going over the prenuptial agreement my grandmother's lawyer had insisted on. "I'd live in a cardboard box with you. I just want you." I believed him. God help me, I believed him. For the first 2 years, things were good. We traveled. We bought a beautiful house in the suburbs, using the down payment for my trust's interest, of course. Blake insisted we handle the finances together, but he slowly took over the bills, the accounts, the taxes. "You're a teacher," he'd say. "You have enough stress with the kids. Let me handle the boring stuff." It felt like a luxury to be taken care of. But looking back, I see the pattern. He was isolating me. He didn't like my friends. He'd make subtle comments about them until I stopped inviting them over. He'd complain when I spent too much time at school. He wanted me all to himself. Or rather, he wanted me contained. The 5-year mark. That was the key. We had been married for 3 years. 2 more years, and the trust would unlock completely. 2 more years, and the millions would be liquid. But Blake, apparently, couldn't wait that long. Or maybe he had debts I didn't know about. Huge debts. Debts that wouldn't wait for an anniversary. So, they came up with a plan B. If they couldn't wait for the 5 years, they had to trigger the other clause. The safety clause. They had to prove I was mentally incapacitated. They had to prove I was losing my mind. And that's where the vitamins came in. It began about 8 months ago. Blake came home one evening with a sleek, dark bottle of supplements. He said his buddy at the gym, a guy who supposedly worked in biotech, had recommended them specifically for women with high-stress jobs like teaching. "It's all natural, babe," he promised, shaking the bottle so the pills rattled. Magnesium, valerian root, a high-dose B-complex. "It'll help you sleep better and keep your energy up during the day. I hate seeing you so worn out." I was touched. I was tired. Teaching high school English is exhausting, and I had been feeling a bit run down. So, I took them. I trusted my husband. Why wouldn't I? The first few weeks, I actually thought they were working. I slept heavily. I mean, heavily. I wouldn't wake up once during the night. But the mornings were brutal. I would wake up feeling like I was wading through quicksand. My head would pound, and my mouth would taste like metal. Blake would be there with coffee, rubbing my back, telling me I just needed to adjust to the deep sleep cycle. But then, the gaps started. It started with small things. I'd lose my keys. I'd find the milk in the cupboard and the cereal in the fridge. I'd walk into a room and have absolutely no idea why I was there. I laughed it off at first. "Mom brain without the baby," I joked to my friend Tanya. But Tanya didn't laugh. She looked at me with worry in her eyes. Then came the incident at school. This is a memory that still makes my cheeks burn with shame. I was in the middle of teaching The Great Gatsby, a book I have taught for 7 years. I know it backward and forward. I was standing in front of my AP English class, 25 bright-eyed teenagers looking at me, and suddenly, my mind went blank. Completely blank. It wasn't just losing my train of thought. It was like someone had erased the whiteboard of my brain. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who these kids were. I didn't even know who I was for a terrifying 10 seconds. I stood there, mouth open, hand trembling in the air. Mrs. Davis, one of my students, a sweet girl named Sarah, asked tentatively, "Are you okay?" I stared at her. I couldn't remember her name. I had written her a recommendation letter the week before, and I couldn't remember her name. I burst into tears. I couldn't stop. I ran out of the classroom, hyperventilating, and hid in the faculty bathroom. The principal had to call Blake to come pick me up. When Blake arrived, he didn't look surprised. He didn't look scared. He looked resigned. He guided me to the car with a firm hand on my elbow, speaking to the principal in a low, serious voice. "She's been struggling lately," I heard him say. "We're trying to get her help. I'm so sorry she caused a scene." Caused a scene. As if I had thrown a tantrum, not had a medical emergency. On the ride home, I was sobbing, terrified that I was having a stroke or early-onset dementia. Blake drove with one hand on the wheel and the other holding mine. But his grip was tight, almost painful. "It's okay, Heather," he said, his voice smooth like oil. "You're just stressed. You're overwhelmed. Maybe you're taking on too much. Maybe you're not cut out for full-time work right now." "I love my job," I protested weakly, my head spinning. "I know you do, baby. But look at you. You can't remember your students' names. You're putting your keys in the freezer. It's getting worse, Heather. I'm worried about you. Mom is worried about you." He dropped the seed right there. It's getting worse. He was framing the narrative. He wasn't comforting me, he was confirming my worst fears. He was telling me I was broken. That night, he doubled the dose of the vitamins. "To help you calm down," he said. And like a fool, like a trusting, scared, vulnerable fool, I swallowed them. I let him pull the blanket up to my chin. I let him kiss me goodnight. I didn't know that the pills were the poison. I didn't know that the man holding my hand was the one pushing me off the cliff. I just thought I was losing my mind. And he was counting on that. After the school incident, Patricia became a permanent fixture in our lives. She started coming over every day to help. But Patricia's help felt more like an occupation. She would arrive at 9 a.m. sharp, letting herself in with the key Blake had given her without my permission. She would walk around my house, running a finger over dust that wasn't there, straightening pillows that didn't need straightening, and looking at me with this pitiful, condescending expression. "Oh, Heather," she would sigh, watching me struggle to make coffee with my shaking hands. "You look dreadful. Just dreadful. Are you sure you're eating? You're wasting away." I wasn't wasting away. If anything, I was bloated from the medication and the stress eating. But she made me feel small. She made me feel transparent. The gaslighting ramped up to a level that was almost artistic in its cruelty. I would leave my phone on the kitchen counter, turn around to wash a dish, and when I turned back, it would be gone. I would search the whole house, frantic, crying, convinced I had lost it again. And then Patricia would pull it out from under the sofa cushions in the living room. "It was right here, dear," she would say, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "You must have dropped it and forgotten." Again. I didn't go in the living room, I would argue, my voice trembling. "Oh, honey," she would exchange a knowing look with Blake. "You were just in there. You were talking to the wall. Don't you remember? Talking to the wall." They planted memories I didn't have. They created hallucinations I wasn't seeing. They made me question the very fabric of my reality. One afternoon, about 3 months ago, Patricia sat me down at the kitchen table. She made tea. She held my hand. Her palms were dry and cold, like papery snakeskin. "Heather," she started, looking deep into my eyes. "Blake and I have been talking. We think it's time to be honest about your family history." "My family history?" I blinked, fighting through the brain fog. My parents died in a car crash. Yes, the crash, Patricia nodded slowly. But do you know why they crashed? I stared at her. It was ice. A slick patch on the highway. Patricia shook her head sadly. That's what your grandmother told you to protect you. But Blake hired a private investigator to look into the medical records. For your sake, dear. Your mother, she had episodes. Just like you're having now. Manic episodes. Memory loss. Confusion. My heart hammered against my ribs. What are you saying? She drove the car off the road on purpose, Heather, Patricia lied. The lie was so smooth, so confident. She was having a psychotic break. It runs in the female line. Your grandmother had it too, at the end. It skips a generation sometimes, or it manifests later. But we're seeing the signs in you. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Was this true? Could Nana Rose have lied to me my whole life? Was the madness inside me, woven into my DNA, a ticking time bomb that had finally gone off? No, I whispered. Nana was sane. She was sharp. She was controlling, Patricia corrected sharply. She hid the truth to secure the money. But we don't care about the money, Heather. We care about you. We need to get you proper treatment before you hurt yourself. Or Blake. She squeezed my hand hard. You don't want to hurt Blake, do you? Of course not. I sobbed. Then you need to listen to us. You need to stop fighting. Let Blake handle the legal side of things. Let him take the burden of the estate off your shoulders so you can focus on getting well. Stress triggers the psychosis, Heather. If you keep trying to manage that money, you're going to end up like your mother. It was a masterclass in manipulation. She took my deepest trauma, the loss of my parents, and twisted it into a weapon to disarm me. She made me afraid of myself. She made me believe that handing over control was the only way to save my marriage and my life. I went to bed that afternoon and cried until I threw up. Blake came home, heard the story from his mother, and came upstairs to hold me. It's okay, he whispered into my hair. I'm not going to let you crash. I'm going to take the wheel. Just sign the papers, baby. Just let me drive. I was so close to signing. I was so broken, so tired, so scared of the genetic monster they had invented. If it hadn't been for Tanya, I would have signed my life away the next week. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, I have to tell you about the doctor. The doctor who wasn't really a doctor at all. 2 weeks after Patricia dropped the bomb about my genetic insanity, Blake told me he had found a specialist. He said Dr. Eris was a renowned neurologist who specialized in hereditary cognitive decline. He said he had pulled a lot of strings and paid a hefty consultation fee out of pocket because our insurance wouldn't cover such an exclusive provider. We're going to fix this, Blake said, dressing me like a doll because my motor skills were so shot from the drugs. Dr. Eris is the best. I expected a hospital. I expected a sterile clinic with receptionists and waiting rooms. Instead, Blake drove us to a nondescript office building in an industrial park on the edge of town. There was no signage. No other patients. Just a heavy steel door that buzzed when Blake pressed the intercom. He values privacy, Blake explained when he saw my hesitation. He treats high-profile clients. Celebrities, politicians. People who can't afford to have their mental health issues leaked to the press. It sounded plausible. In my drugged state, everything sounded plausible. Inside, the office was luxurious but strange. Leather chairs, dark wood, no medical posters, no diplomas on the wall. Dr. Eris was a man in his 50s with a slick ponytail and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He didn't wear a white coat. He wore a tailored suit that looked more expensive than my car. He didn't run an MRI. He didn't take blood. He didn't do a cognitive test. He just sat there and asked Blake questions about me, while I sat in the chair next to my husband, drooling slightly, unable to form coherent sentences. She forgets where she is, Blake said, looking tragic. She gets aggressive. She throws things. Last week, she threatened to burn the house down because she thought there were spiders in the walls. I didn't, I tried to mumble. My tongue felt thick, like a piece of raw steak in my mouth. I never, spiders. Dr. Eris looked at me with faux pity. He shined a penlight in my eyes, blinding me. Dilated pupils, he noted to Blake. Disorientation. Slurred speech. Classic signs of rapid onset dissociation. He turned to his computer and typed for a few minutes. The clicking of the keys sounded like gunfire in the quiet room. Then, the printer whirred. I'm diagnosing her with early-onset psychosis with paranoia, Dr. Eris announced. He handed a thick stack of papers to Blake. This is a formal medical evaluation. It recommends immediate and total supervision. Heather is a danger to herself and others. She lacks the capacity to make medical, legal, or financial decisions. He turned to me. I'm prescribing a heavier sedative, Heather. To quiet the voices. I don't hear voices, I managed to say, a tear sliding down my cheek. That's the paranoia speaking, Dr. Eris said smoothly. He looked at Blake. You need to file for emergency conservatorship. With this evaluation, the judge will grant it immediately. You'll have full power of attorney. It's the only way to protect her assets and her safety. Blake nodded, looking solemnly at the papers. Thank you, Doctor. I just want to save my wife. You're a good man, Blake, Dr. Eris said. Most men would have left. Most men would have left. That phrase echoed in my head on the ride home. I felt a crushing wave of guilt. Here was my husband, standing by a crazy woman, taking on the burden of her illness, fighting for her care. I hated myself. I hated my broken brain. I didn't know then that Dr. Eris had lost his medical license 3 years prior for insurance fraud and overprescribing opioids. I didn't know that Blake had paid him $5,000 cash for that diagnosis. I didn't know that the heavier sedative was actually an antipsychotic that, if given to a healthy person, causes permanent neurological damage. I just sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window at the blurring world, wishing I could just disappear. I felt trapped in my own body, a prisoner of a mind that I thought had betrayed me. I didn't know the betrayal was sitting in the driver's seat, humming along to the radio, calculating exactly how long it would take to liquidate my grandmother's estate. But help was coming. And it was coming in the form of a sarcastic, nosy, wonderful best friend who refused to take no for an answer. Tanya has been my best friend since college. She's the kind of person who doesn't knock, she walks in and announces her presence. She's loud, she's opinionated, and she has a lie detector built into her gut that has never been wrong. Blake hated her. He called her abrasive. He had successfully kept her away for months, telling her I was too sick for visitors, or that I was sleeping, or that I was contagious with the flu. But Tanya knew something was off. When I stopped texting her back, when I missed our monthly brunch dates, she didn't just fade away. She got suspicious. 3 days after the appointment with Dr. Eris, Blake was at work. Patricia had stepped out to the grocery store, a rare 20-minute window where I was left alone, supposedly sleeping in the living room recliner. The front door unlocked. I flinched, thinking it was Patricia coming back early. But it was Tanya. She had a spare key I had given her 5 years ago, one Blake didn't know about. She marched into the living room, took one look at me, and gasped. My God, Heather. I must have looked terrible. Greasy hair, pale skin, dark circles under my eyes, wearing pajamas I hadn't changed in 2 days. Tanya? I rasped. You shouldn't be here. Blake, he says I'm dangerous. Dangerous? Tanya snorted. She dropped her bag and knelt beside me. She grabbed my face in her hands. You're not dangerous, honey. You're stoned. Look at your pupils. They're pinpoint. It's the vitamins, I mumbled. And the medicine. For the madness. Madness my ass, Tanya snapped. She stood up and walked straight to the kitchen. She knew exactly where Blake kept the special vitamins. She grabbed the bottle from the counter. What are you doing? I tried to sit up, but the room spun. I'm doing a science experiment, she said grimly. She opened the bottle and sniffed it. These don't smell like B-complex. B-complex smells like yeast. These smell like chemicals. She pulled a similar-looking bottle out of her purse. It was a bottle of generic herbal sleep aid she took, valerian root, harmless stuff. The capsules looked almost identical. Blue. Shiny. I'm switching them, Tanya said. She dumped Blake's pills into a Ziploc bag she produced from her pocket. Then she filled Blake's bottle with her herbal supplements. She put the cap back on and placed it exactly where it had been. Tanya, no, I panicked. If he finds out, he's trying to help me. Tanya came back to me and gripped my shoulders hard. Her eyes were fierce. Heather, listen to me. I know you. I know your brain. You are the woman who memorized Shakespeare sonnets for fun. You are not crazy. You are being drugged. I don't know why, and I don't know what for, but I am not leaving you like this. She pointed a finger at me. You take the pills he gives you tonight. Because they are safe now. They are just herbs. And when you wake up tomorrow with a clear head, you call me. Do you understand? You call me. She heard a car door slam outside. Patricia was back. I have to go, Tanya whispered. She shoved the Ziploc bag of poison pills into her bra. I'm going to get these tested. Stay safe. Act sick. Don't let them know you're getting better. She slipped out the back door just as Patricia bustled in the front, carrying grocery bags and complaining about the traffic. That night, Blake gave me the pills. I swallowed them, terrified that he would notice the switch. But he didn't. He was too arrogant. He thought he had total control. I went to sleep. But for the first time in months, I dreamed. Real dreams. And when I woke up the next morning, the fog wasn't there. The headache wasn't there. I felt clear. I felt like me. I lay in bed, listening to Blake shower in the ensuite bathroom, and the realization hit me like a physical blow. Tanya was right. I wasn't sick. I wasn't crazy. I had been poisoned. The clarity brought a surge of rage so hot it almost choked me. I looked at the man humming in the shower, my husband, my protector, and I realized I was sleeping next to a monster. And then, I remembered the briefcase. Blake always kept his leather briefcase locked, but he had left his keys on the dresser. I had a clear head, 10 minutes, and a burning need for answers. I got out of bed. I moved quietly to the dresser. My hands, usually trembling from the drugs, were steady for the first time in months. I grabbed Blake's keys and tiptoed to the closet where he kept his briefcase. My heart was pounding against my ribs, not from fear this time, but from adrenaline. I unlocked the briefcase. Inside, neatly organized in file folders, was the anatomy of my destruction. The first thing I found was a stack of overdue notices. Red ink everywhere. Credit cards I didn't know existed, maxed out to limits of $50,000 each. But that was small change compared to what lay beneath. There were printouts from an online gambling site. Crypto futures. High-risk sports betting. The losses were staggering. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Blake wasn't just in debt. He was drowning. He had gambled away our savings, his 401k, and he was currently leveraged on loans from lenders that didn't look like banks, names like Viper Capital and Shadow Lending. The interest rates were predatory. He owed over $500,000, and the deadlines were approaching. Then I found the legal documents. Petition for emergency conservatorship. My name was typed at the top. Blake's name was listed as the petitioner. The document was filled out, dated for next Monday. Attached to it was the fake evaluation from Dr. Eris, citing my violent outbursts and severe cognitive decline. And there was another document underneath it. A draft of a property sale agreement. It was for my grandmother's estate, the house I had inherited, the land, everything. Blake had already lined up a buyer. He was selling my family legacy for pennies on the dollar to a developer, presumably for a quick cash infusion to pay off the loan sharks. But the most chilling thing wasn't the numbers. It was a notebook. A small, black moleskine notebook tucked in the back pocket of the case. I opened it. It was a log. August 12th, dosage increased to 15 milligrams, subject compliant. Noticed memory lapse at 10 a.m. September 4th, subject embarrassed herself at school. Perfect. Credibility destroyed. October 1st, mom suggests pushing the genetic angle. Good idea. Subject is susceptible to guilt. He had documented it. He had documented the systematic destruction of my mind like he was debugging a piece of software. Subject. He didn't even call me his wife. I was just a subject. A glitched program he was trying to override to get to the payout. I heard the shower turn off. Panic flared. I quickly shoved the papers back in, locked the briefcase, and threw the keys back on the dresser. I dove back into bed just as the bathroom door opened. Blake walked out, towel around his waist, smelling of expensive soap. He looked at me, lying there with my eyes half closed, and smiled. It was a benevolent, pitying smile. "Good morning, sleepyhead," he said. "How are you feeling?" I had to act. I had to summon every ounce of acting ability I had. I let my eyelids droop. I slurred my voice. "Foggy," I mumbled. "Head hurts." Did I sleep?" "You slept great, babe," he said, coming over to kiss my forehead. "You didn't move an inch." "The new meds are working." "I feel heavy," I lied. "That's normal," he reassured me. "I'm going to work today, but Mom will be here in an hour. You just rest. Don't worry about anything." He got dressed, whistling a happy tune. He was happy because he thought he had one. He thought I was erased. He didn't know that the woman lying in his bed was wide awake, armed with the truth, and fueled by a hatred so pure it felt like a weapon. As soon as he left, I texted Tanya. "You were right. Everything. Come get the evidence. We need a plan." But I couldn't leave yet. I needed more than just papers. Papers could be argued. Debts could be explained away as bad investments. The medical report could be defended as a mistake. I needed undeniable proof. I needed to know exactly what he was doing in the basement. And that brings us back to last night. The night I hid the pill. The night I followed him downstairs. So here we are. Back on the stairs. My hand over my mouth. The basement door ajar. I watched through the crack. Blake was sitting in front of the laptop. The camera on the tripod was pointed at an empty chair, a velvet armchair brought down from the guest room. "She'll be down in a minute," Blake said to the screen. He was typing furiously. Yeah, special request tonight. I know you guys like the bruises." My stomach lurched. The bruises. The mysterious marks on my arms and thighs that I thought I had given myself during manic episodes. They weren't from me. They were requests. "Is the lighting good?" Patricia asked. She was adjusting a studio light, angling it toward the chair. "Make sure they can see her face clearly." That user Dark Knight tipped extra for close-ups of her crying. "I can't make her cry if she's unconscious, Mom," Blake snapped. "Use the onion juice like last time," Patricia suggested casually. "Or just pinch her hard. She winces even when she's out." I felt vomit rise in my throat. They were selling me. They were live-streaming my unconscious, drugged body to a dark corner of the internet where sick men paid to see women helpless. It wasn't just about the inheritance. That was the long game. This digital trafficking was the short game. This was how they were paying the daily interest on the loans. I watched as Blake stood up. "All right, stream is live. I'm going to go get the merchandise." Merchandise. I had to move. If he caught me on the stairs, it was over. I scrambled back up the stairs, my bare feet silent on the wood. I practically flew into the bedroom and dove under the covers. I slowed my breathing, forcing my body to mimic sleep. I heard him enter the room. I felt his presence looming over the bed. I felt his hand grab my ankle. He dragged me. He literally dragged me down the bed. "Come on, dead weight," he grunted. He lifted me into his arms. I went limp. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, letting this man, this predator, carry me like a rag doll. He carried me out of the room, down the hall, and down the stairs. I kept my eyes closed, but I could hear everything. The hum of the computer fans. Patricia's heavy breathing. He dumped me into the velvet chair. "Head back," Patricia instructed. "Open her mouth a little. They like that." Blake grabbed my jaw and tilted my head back. I felt his rough fingers pry my lips apart. "Perfect," he said. "Okay, bidding is open. What do we want to see tonight?" "Someone wants to see her feet?" 500 credits. Done. I felt him pull the socks off my feet. I felt the camera lens zoom in. I lay there, exposed, violated in a way that felt worse than physical assault. I was a spectacle. A prop. "Hey," Blake said suddenly, his voice changing tone. "User Payback 88 just bid 5,000 for a wake-up scare. He wants me to slap her awake." 5,000? Patricia gasped. "Do it. We can just drug her again after." My heart stopped. If he slapped me, I would flinch. I would open my eyes. The adrenaline would give me away. I couldn't pretend to be drugged if I was startled awake. "All right," Blake said. I heard him rubbing his hands together. 5,000 going once. I braced myself. I prepared to fight. I prepared to gouge his eyes out if he touched me. But then, a notification pinged on the laptop. A loud, jarring sound. "Wait," Blake said. "Hold on. Someone just outbid. 10,000. 10,000? Patricia squealed. "For what?" User Watcher_0 says. "Don't touch her. Just let her sleep. I want to watch her breathe for an hour." "Freak," Blake laughed. "But hey, money is money." "All right, Watcher_0, she's all yours." I was saved by a stranger. Or so I thought. I lay there for an hour, listening to them count their crypto earnings, listening to my mother-in-law complain about my cheap pajamas, while thousands of eyes watched me breathe. When the hour was up, Blake carried me back upstairs and dumped me in bed. "Easy money," he whispered, kissing my cheek. "You're finally worth something, Heather." As soon as he left the room to go back down and shut down the equipment, I opened my eyes. Tears were streaming into my ears. I wasn't just sad. I wasn't just scared. I was a different person than the one who had gone to sleep that night. That Heather, the teacher, the wife, the optimist, was dead. She died in that velvet chair. The woman who woke up was cold. She was calculating. And she was going to burn their entire world to the ground. I knew I had to leave. But I couldn't just run. If I ran, they would hunt me. They would use the conservatorship papers. They would drag me back. No. I had to destroy them first. I needed that footage. I needed the hard drive. And I knew exactly how to get it. The next morning, the sun came up just like it always did. It filtered through the sheer curtains of our master bedroom, casting soft, golden bars of light across the duvet. It looked like a normal Wednesday. But to me, it felt like the morning after a massacre. I had been lying awake since Blake brought me back upstairs at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing. Every inhale, every exhale from the man beside me made my skin crawl. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab the lamp from the nightstand and smash it over his head. But I knew I couldn't. Not yet. Rage is a powerful fuel, but patience is the weapon that wins the war. At 7 a.m., Blake's alarm went off. He groaned, stretched, and rolled over to drape an arm across my waist. "Morning, beautiful," he mumbled into my neck. "How did you sleep?" It took every ounce of willpower I possessed not to vomit. His skin felt like sandpaper against mine. His breath, which I used to think smelled like comfort and coffee, now smelled like betrayal. I feel heavy," I said, keeping my voice low and slurred. I kept my eyes half closed, mimicking the drug hangover he expected to see. Did I have a bad night? My arms hurt. I watched him closely through my eyelashes. For a split second, a flicker of panic crossed his face, but he smoothed it over instantly with that practiced, sociopathic calm. "You were tossing and turning a bit, babe," he lied effortlessly. "You were scratching your arms in your sleep again. I had to hold you down to keep you from hurting yourself. God, it breaks my heart seeing you like this." He had to hold me down. The audacity of the lie almost made me gasp. He held me down so strangers could bid on my body parts. "I'm sorry," I whispered, playing the part of the broken wife. "I'm so much trouble." "Shoo, never," he kissed my forehead. "I'm going to hop in the shower. You stay in bed. Mom will be over at 9 to keep an eye on you." As soon as the bathroom door clicked shut and the water started running, I moved. I didn't have much time. I knew from my nightly sessions that Blake was desperate for money, but I needed to know exactly how desperate. I needed to know the timeline. I slipped out of bed and went to the pile of clothes he had discarded on the floor the night before, the sweatpants and t-shirt he wore during the live stream. I checked the pockets. Nothing. I checked his work bag. Nothing. Then I saw his phone. He had left it on the charger. Blake was careful, he usually took it into the bathroom with him. But arrogance makes people sloppy. He felt so secure in his control over me that he was starting to slip. I knew his passcode. It was our anniversary. 1014, I punched it in. My hands were shaking so badly I mistyped it the first time. "Please, please don't lock me out." I typed it again. It unlocked. I didn't go to his texts. I went to his email. I searched for keywords, loan, bank, overdue. The results filled the screen. It was a sea of red flags. Final notice, mortgage payment returned insufficient funds. Urgent, Viper Capital repayment schedule. Notice of default. I opened the email from Viper Capital. It was dated yesterday. Mr. Davis, your grace period expires in 7 days. If the remaining balance of $450,000 is not settled, we will move to asset seizure. And as discussed, our collection agents are not as patient as your bank. Asset seizure. They were coming for the house. My grandmother's house. Then I saw another email, sent from Blake to Patricia just a few hours ago, timestamped at 3:30 a.m. right after the live stream ended. Subject, almost there. Body, we made $12,000 tonight thanks to the whale watcher _0. But it's not enough to clear the VIG. We need to push the conservatorship hearing up. Can you get Dr. Eris to certify that she's a suicide risk? If we can commit her by Friday, I can get power of attorney by Monday and liquidate the trust. We need to sell the house fast. Friday. Today was Wednesday. They were planning to have me committed to a mental institution in 48 hours. I heard the water shut off in the bathroom. I quickly swiped out of the app, locked the phone, and placed it back on the charger exactly at the angle I found it. I dove back into bed, pulling the covers up to my chin just as the door opened. You okay, hon? Blake asked, toweling off his hair. You look pale. Just anxious, I said. And for the first time that morning, I wasn't lying. Don't worry, he smiled, and it was the smile of a predator looking at a trapped rabbit. Everything is going to be over soon. By the weekend, you're going to be in a much better place. He meant a padded cell. I meant freedom. I waited for him to leave for work. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I ran to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired, yes. But I looked fierce. You have 48 hours, Heather, I told my reflection. Time to go to war. I had a window of about 45 minutes before Patricia arrived for her daily shift as my jailer. I knew I couldn't drive my car. Blake tracked my GPS. I checked my purse. He had taken my credit cards for safekeeping, but I had a stash of emergency cash, about $800, hidden inside an old tampon box under the sink. It was something Nana Rose taught me, always have running money, Heather. Always. I grabbed the cash and ran out the back door. I cut through the neighbor's yard, praying Mrs. Higgins wasn't looking out her window, and power-walked 3 blocks to the strip mall. There was no specialized spy store nearby, but there was a Best Buy. I walked in, breathless, hoodie pulled up. I found the home security section. I didn't buy the big, obvious cameras. I bought 3 nanny cams disguised as USB wall chargers. They looked exactly like standard phone charging blocks, but they had tiny lenses and recorded audio and video to an SD card. I bought 3 128GB memory cards. I paid cash. I didn't make eye contact with the cashier. I ran back home, my heart pounding a rhythm against my ribs. I made it back with 10 minutes to spare. I worked fast. I plugged one charger into the outlet in the master bedroom, facing the bed. I plugged the second one in the kitchen, near the table where Patricia usually sat to make her phone calls. The third one was the trickiest. I needed it in the basement. I ran downstairs. The basement was cold, smelling of damp concrete and Blake's secrets. I found an outlet behind the TV stand they used for the live stream setup. It was low, discreet. I plugged it in. Just as I was coming up the basement stairs, I heard the front door unlock. Patricia. I froze. I was halfway up the stairs. If she saw me coming out of the basement, the one place I was supposed to have no interest in, she would know. She would tell Blake. Heather, her voice screeched from the foyer. Heather, are you awake? I looked around frantically. There was nowhere to hide. I did the only thing I could think of. I sat down on the top step, pulled my knees to my chest, and started rocking back and forth. I made a low, keening sound, like a wounded animal. Patricia rounded the corner. When she saw me sitting there, rocking and moaning, her face didn't show concern. It showed annoyance. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she muttered, dropping her purse. "What are you doing by the basement door? You know you're not allowed down there. It's dangerous." "Voices," I mumbled, keeping up the act. "I heard voices down there. The bad men." Patricia's eyes widened. She marched over to me, grabbed my upper arm, and hauled me up. Her grip was surprisingly strong for an older woman. "There are no voices, Heather. That's the sickness talking. That's why we need to get you to the hospital. You're hallucinating." She dragged me to the living room and shoved me onto the sofa. "Sit. Stay. I'm going to make tea, and you are going to take your morning pill. You're obviously agitated." She went to the kitchen. I watched her back, hatred burning in my gut. She was so confident in her narrative. She thought she was talking to a broken woman. She didn't know that the charger plugged into the wall 3 feet away from her was currently recording her every move. "Here," she said, returning with a cup of tea and a white pill. It was the sedative Dr. Eris prescribed. I took the pill. I put it in my mouth. I drank the tea. "Good girl," she patted my cheek. It was a slap disguised as a caress. When she turned to turn on the TV, I spit the pill into my teacup. The tea was murky enough to hide it. For the rest of the day, I laid on that couch, pretending to drift in and out of consciousness. And I listened. I listened as Patricia made phone calls. "Yes, Dr. Eris," she said into the phone around noon. "It's escalating. She was trying to get into the basement today. She's paranoid. She thinks there are people down there." "Yes, Friday morning works. We'll have the transport team ready." "No, we haven't told her yet. It's better if we just surprise her." She hung up and chuckled. A dry, rasping sound. "Poor thing," she said to the empty room. "She really is going to lose everything. But at least Blake will finally have the life he deserves." I closed my eyes and focused on the recording light of the hidden camera. "Keep talking, Patricia," I thought. "Dig your own grave. I'll hand you the shovel." The next 48 hours were an exercise in psychological torture. I had to be 2 people at once. On the outside, I was Heather the invalid, shuffling, mumbling, drooling, staring blankly at walls. On the inside, I was a coiled spring, sharp and alert, recording every word, every threat, every lie. I had to maintain the charade perfectly. If I slipped up once, if I used a big word, if I walked too steadily, if I showed a spark of intelligence in my eyes, they would know. And if they knew, they wouldn't wait for the hospital. They would just kill me. Wednesday night was another live stream. I took the fake pills Tanya gave me. I waited. Blake came in, checked my eyes, dragged me downstairs. This time, it was harder to stay limp. They were getting bolder. Patricia was right there, reading comments. "User Bossman wants to see the bruises on her thighs," Patricia announced. "Lift her skirt, Blake." I felt the cool air of the basement on my skin. I felt the humiliation burn through me like acid. I lay there, my mind screaming, forcing my body to remain a corpse. I dissociated. I went to a beach in my mind. I counted grains of sand. 1, 2, 3. "She's lost weight," Blake commented, squeezing my arm. "She feels bony. We need to fatten her up before we sell her to the psych ward. Once she's in the state facility, she's going to look like a hag in a month." "Doesn't matter," Patricia replied. "Once she's committed, we control the assets. We can sell the house next week. I already have the realtor drafting the listing. We're listing it for $1.2 million for a quick sale." "And the collection agency?" "I told them they'll have their money in 10 days. Just keep her drugged until Friday morning. The transport van comes at 6 a.m. 6 a.m. Friday. That was my deadline. Thursday was worse. The anticipation was eating me alive. I spent the day sleeping in the bedroom while the camera and the charger recorded Blake and Patricia packing up my valuables. They were eluding me while I was still in the house. This necklace is real gold, Patricia said, holding up Nana Rose's vintage locket, the one with my parents' picture in it. I can get maybe $300 for it at the pawn shop. Just take it, Blake said from the closet. He was packing my designer bags. She won't need jewelry where she's going. They don't allow sharp objects. I watched through half-closed eyes as they stripped my life apart. They took my jewelry, my expensive coats, even my laptop. They were erasing me. It wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about annihilation. They wanted to scrub Heather Davis from the face of the earth and replace her with a checkbook. I felt a tear slip out. I couldn't help it. Look, Patricia pointed. She's crying in her sleep. God, she's pathetic. She's broken, Mom, Blake said, zipping up a bag of my clothes. We're doing her a favor. She can't handle the real world. Doing me a favor. That night, Thursday night, was the final straw. They didn't do a live stream. They were too busy prepping for the extraction, as they called it. I lay in bed, the house quiet. Blake was in the shower. I retrieved the SD card from the bedroom charger. I crept downstairs and got the one from the kitchen. I didn't dare go to the basement, the door was locked tonight. I had hours of footage. I had them confessing to fraud. I had them planning to commit me falsely. I had them stealing my property. But then, as I was sneaking back upstairs, I heard Blake on the phone in his office. The door was cracked. I froze. Yeah, Dr. Eris, Blake was saying. Listen, change of plans. I don't think the hospital is a permanent enough solution. She's fighting the meds. She's getting lucid. My heart stopped. Had he noticed? What if? Blake lowered his voice, and I had to lean in, pressing my ear to the cold wood of the doorframe. What if she has an accident on the stairs tonight? She's clumsy. She's dizzy. If she falls and breaks her neck, that solves the conservatorship problem instantly. I get the life insurance payout too. Double the money, half the paperwork. Silence. He was listening to the doctor. You can make the autopsy look clean? Toxic screen will just show the sedatives you prescribed? Perfect. Blake hung up. He wasn't sending me to the hospital anymore. He realized I was waking up. He realized I was a risk. He was going to kill me. Tonight. I looked at the top of the stairs. The railing. I saw Blake's toolbox sitting nearby. He had loosened the bolts on the banister. If I leaned on it, if I stumbled, it would give way. And I would fall 20 feet onto the marble foyer below. I wasn't waiting for Friday morning. I wasn't waiting for the police. I had to get out. Now. Panic is a funny thing. It can paralyze you, or it can make you superhuman. In that moment, standing in the hallway, realizing my husband was plotting my murder with the casual tone of someone ordering a pizza, I chose to be superhuman. I quietly retreated to the guest room. I grabbed the go bag I had hidden under the bed days ago, just a backpack with my ID, the cash, the SD cards, and a change of clothes. I didn't pack anything else. Everything else was just stuff. My life was what mattered. I checked the time. 11:45 p.m. Blake was still in his office. Patricia had gone home for the night to get her beauty sleep before the big day. I needed a distraction. I went to the master bathroom. I turned on the shower full blast. I arranged pillows under the duvet to look like a sleeping body. I put my phone on the nightstand, playing a white noise sleep track. Then, I went to the window. We were on the second floor, but there was a sturdy trellis covered in wisteria vines that ran down the side of the house. I used to think it was romantic. Now, it was my ladder to freedom. I climbed out the window. The night air was freezing. Rain had started to fall, slicking the vines. I lost my footing halfway down, scraping my shin against the rough wood, biting my tongue to keep from screaming. I hung there for a second, dangling by one arm, wind whipping my hair into my face. Don't you dare let go, Heather, I told myself. If you fall, he wins. If you fall, you die. I found my footing. I scrambled down the rest of the way, landing in the muddy flower bed with a soft thud. I didn't look back. I ran. My car was in the driveway, but Blake had the keys. I couldn't take it. I had to run to Tanya's. She lived 3 miles away. I sprinted through the subdivision. The rain was pouring now, soaking through my hoodie. I stuck to the shadows, avoiding street lights. Every pair of headlights that swept by made me dive behind a bush or a parked car. I was terrified Blake would check the bed, realize the pillows were fake, and come hunting. I ran until my lungs burned. I ran until I could taste blood in my throat. I reached Tanya's house 20 minutes later. I pounded on her door like a madwoman. Tanya! Tanya, open up! The porch light flicked on. The door flew open. Tanya stood there in her robe, a baseball bat in her hand. When she saw me, soaked, muddy, bleeding from my shin, she dropped the bat and pulled me inside. He's going to kill me, I gasped, collapsing onto her foyer rug. He loosened the railing. He was going to push me. Tanya didn't ask questions. She didn't hesitate. She dragged me up, locked the door, and engaged the deadbolt. We're going to the police, she said, her voice shaking with rage. Right now. I'm driving. No, I grabbed her arm. He has trackers. He knows he might come here. Let him come, Tanya snarled. She grabbed her keys and the bag of SD cards I was clutching. We're going to the precinct. The one downtown. We're giving them everything. We got into her car. As we pulled out of her driveway, headlights flashed in the rearview mirror. A black SUV. Blake's car. He found me, I screamed. Tanya, drive. Tanya floored it. The chase was short but terrifying. Blake tried to cut us off at the intersection, swerving his massive SUV into our lane. He was insane. He was desperate. He knew if I talked, his life was over. Call 911. Tanya yelled, swerving around a stopped truck. I fumbled with her phone. We're being chased. My husband is trying to kill me. We're on Main Street, heading to the station. Hold on. Tanya screamed. She ran a red light. Blake followed, honking his horn, flashing his high beams to blind us. But then, we saw it. The blue lights of the police station ahead. Tanya screeched into the parking lot, practically drifting sideways, and slammed on the brakes right in front of the main entrance. We scrambled out of the car, screaming for help. 3 officers ran out, hands on their holsters. Blake's SUV skidded to a halt at the entrance of the lot. He saw the cops. He saw me standing safely behind a concrete barrier. For a second, our eyes met across the rain-slicked pavement. I saw the realization hit him. The game was over. He threw the car in reverse and sped off into the night. Get an APB out on a black Escalade, one officer yelled into his radio. Suspect is fleeing. I collapsed onto the wet pavement, the rain mixing with my tears. I was safe. I was finally safe. Sitting in that interrogation room, wrapped in a scratchy wool blanket, holding a cup of lukewarm coffee, I felt a strange sense of calm. The chaos of the chase was over. Now came the cold, hard work of justice. Detective Miller was a kind man with tired eyes. He sat opposite me, listening as I told him everything. I played the videos from the SD cards on his laptop. I watched his face change. He started out professional, detached. But when he saw the footage from the basement, the footage of Blake and Patricia discussing selling my house, the footage of them reading comments from the perverts online, the footage of Blake checking my pupils, he turned a shade of red I'll never forget. Jesus Christ, he muttered, closing the laptop. Trafficking. Fraud. Attempted murder. Conspiracy. He looked at me. Mrs. Davis, we have enough here to put him away for a very long time. And his mother too. He has a gun, I said softly. In the safe. And he's desperate. We'll get him, Miller promised. We're tracking his phone right now. It took 3 hours for them to find him. He had gone to his mother's house. They were trying to shred documents. While I waited, Tanya sat beside me, holding my hand so tight I thought she might break my fingers. You did it, she whispered. You saved yourself. We did it, I corrected her. I couldn't have done it without the pills. I looked around the sterile police station. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 4 a.m. Friday. The day I was supposed to be committed. Instead, I was free. I realized something then. I realized that my story wasn't just my story anymore. It was a warning. It was a beacon. CTA call to action. You know, sitting here telling you this, I can still feel the cold rain on my skin from that night. I can still feel the terror of seeing his headlights in the rearview mirror. It's hard to relive this. It really is. But I'm telling you because I want you to know that no matter how trapped you feel, there is always a way out. If you are still listening to this, please, do me a favor. Hit that like button and comment the number 1 down below. Seeing those ones tells me that you are with me, that you hear me, and that you support survivors. Your interaction is what helps this story reach other women who might need to hear it. It tells the algorithm that our voices matter. So please, drop a 1 for me, and let's finish this story together. Okay. Are you ready? Because what happened next, the arrest, was the most satisfying moment of my entire life. Detective Miller let me ride in the back of an unmarked car to Patricia's house. He said I didn't have to go, that I could stay at the station. But I needed to see it. I needed to see the handcuffs. I needed to know the monster was really in the cage. We pulled up to Patricia's manicured lawn just as dawn was breaking. It was a beautiful house, paid for by her late husband's life insurance. It looked peaceful. Then the SWAT team moved in. They didn't knock. They used a battering ram. Boom. The front door splintered. Police. Search warrant. Get on the ground. The shouting was deafening. I watched from the car window, my breath fogging the glass. A few minutes later, they brought them out. Patricia came first. She was wearing a silk robe and curlers in her hair. She wasn't screaming. She was indignant. She was screeching at the officers, spitting venom. Get your hands off me. Do you know who I am? My son is a professional. This is a mistake. That girl is crazy, she's lying. Then came Blake. He looked smaller. Without his expensive suit, without his arrogant smirk, without the power he held over me, he looked like a scared little boy. His hands were cuffed behind his back. He was shirtless, wearing just jeans. He looked defeated. Until he saw me. I rolled down the window. Just a few inches. I wanted him to see me. I wanted him to see that the broken, crazy wife was sitting in a police car, watching him fall. His eyes locked onto mine. And for a second, the mask slipped back on. He sneered. He actually sneered at me. "You're nothing without me, Heather," he screamed, straining against the officer's grip. "You're pathetic. You'll be begging for me back in a week. You can't handle the money. You're weak." I didn't say anything. I just slowly raised my hand and gave him a little wave. "Get him in the car," Detective Miller barked. They shoved him into the back of a cruiser. As the door slammed shut, I felt a weight lift off my chest that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. Back at the station, the evidence kept piling up. The police found the setup in Patricia's basement too. Apparently, they had been running operations from both houses. They found the hard drives. They found the collection of illicit videos. But the real smoking gun was the financial trail. Blake hadn't just gambled away his money, he had forged my signature on loan documents. He had taken out credit cards in my name. He had stolen over $200,000 from the liquid portion of my trust fund already. "It's a slam dunk," Miller told me later that morning. "We have them on everything. Kidnapping, assault, grand larceny, wire fraud, distribution of illegal materials." "What about Dr. Eris?" I asked. "We picked him up an hour ago," Miller grinned. "Singing like a canary. He's trying to cut a deal. He gave us the emails where Blake explicitly asked for a fatal dose prescription." I shivered. It was over. They were caught. But as anyone who has been through a high-profile legal battle knows, the arrest is just the beginning. The court of public opinion is a whole different beast. And Blake's lawyer was about to play dirty. Blake hired a lawyer named Shark. Well, his name was Mr. Sterling, but he was a shark. He was expensive, aggressive, and completely amoral. Since Blake's assets were frozen, Patricia, who somehow had offshore accounts we didn't know about, footed the bill. Their strategy was simple: victim blaming. Since the trial was months away, they started a PR war. Sterling leaked anonymous tips to the tabloids. Teacher wife was secretly a cam girl? Husband claims he was forced to participate. Suburban heiress spent millions on drugs, blamed husband for debt. They spun the narrative. They claimed that I was the mastermind. They claimed that I had a fetish for being drugged and filmed, and that Blake was just a compliant husband trying to satisfy his wife's twisted fantasies. They claimed the conservatorship was a desperate attempt to stop me from spending all our money on drugs. It was insane. It was laughable. But people believed it. I couldn't go to the grocery store without people staring. My school placed me on administrative leave pending the investigation. I lost my job. I lost my privacy. I felt like I was being assaulted all over again, this time by the world. "Don't look at the comments," Tanya warned me, snatching my phone away. But I looked. "She looks crazy in the videos. Why didn't she leave sooner? She clearly liked it. Rich girls are always messed up." It broke me a little. I spent days crying in Tanya's guest room, wondering if I should just drop the charges and disappear. Maybe Blake was right. Maybe I was weak. But then, I received an email. It was from a woman named Jessica. The subject line was, "I was married to him too." I opened it, my hands trembling. "Hi Heather. I saw your face on the news." I saw his face. I haven't seen Blake in 10 years. Back then, his name was Blake Turner, not Blake Davis. He changed it. He did the same thing to me in Ohio. He didn't have the live stream tech back then, but he drugged me. He made me think I was bipolar. He stole my inheritance from my father and then left me in a state hospital for 6 months. I lost everything. I thought I was the only one. I'm willing to testify. I have the old medical records. I have the proof. I stared at the screen. A cold chill went through me, followed by a burning heat. He was a serial predator. This wasn't a one-time desperation move. This was his career. He hunted women with inheritances, isolated them, gaslit them, stole their money, and discarded them. I wasn't a victim. I was a survivor of a calculated, lifelong criminal enterprise. I called Detective Miller immediately. You need to see this. This email changed everything. It wasn't just he said, she said anymore. It was a pattern. And Jessica wasn't just willing to talk, she was bringing receipts. The trial began 6 months later. The courtroom was packed. The media was there, hungry for the camgirl teacher story. Sterling, Blake's lawyer, was brutal. He put me on the stand for 3 days. He played edited clips of the videos where I looked happy because I was high on sedatives. He grilled me about my mother's car accident, trying to paint me as genetically unstable. Isn't it true, Mrs. Davis, that you have a history of memory loss dating back to childhood? He sneered. No, I said firmly. That was a lie my husband invented. A lie? Or are you just forgetting the truth? It was exhausting. I could see the jury wavering. Blake sat at the defense table, wearing a suit, looking handsome and misunderstood. Patricia sat behind him, clutching a rosary, looking like a grieving mother. But then, the prosecution called their surprise witness. The state calls Jessica Miller. A murmur went through the courtroom. Blake froze. He turned around, and when he saw Jessica walking down the aisle, the blood drained from his face. He looked like he had seen a ghost. Jessica was older now, but she looked strong. She took the stand. Can you explain your relationship to the defendant? The prosecutor asked. He was my husband from 2010 to 2012, Jessica said, her voice clear. We lived in Columbus, Ohio. And how did that marriage end? He had me committed to St. Mary's psychiatric ward against my will, Jessica said. He told the doctors I was paranoid and violent. While I was locked up, he liquidated my father's life insurance policy, about $300,000, and vanished. I never saw him again until I saw him on the news. The jury gasped. Sterling tried to object. Objection. Prior acts. Relevance. It goes to modus operandi, Your Honor, the prosecutor argued. It proves lack of consent and intent to defraud. It proves this is a scheme. The judge overruled the objection. Jessica continued. She produced documents, bank transfers, the fake medical evaluations from 2012 that were almost identical to mine. Then came the final nail in the coffin. Jessica looked at Patricia. And she was there too, Jessica pointed at my mother-in-law. She called herself Aunt Pat back then. She helped him pack my things. She drove the car when they took me to the hospital. Patricia stood up, shrieking. Liar! She's a liar! I don't know this woman. Sit down, madam, the judge banged his gavel. One more outburst and you will be held in contempt. The courtroom was in chaos. The narrative had flipped. Blake wasn't a victim of a crazy wife. He was a Bluebeard. A monster who recycled the same script to destroy women. I looked at Blake. He wasn't smirking anymore. He was slumped in his chair, head in his hands. He knew it was over. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they returned, the courtroom was silent. I held Tanya's hand on one side and Jessica's on the other. We were a sisterhood of survivors. We the jury find the defendant, Blake Davis, guilty on all counts. Guilty. 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 Trafficking. Guilty. Fraud. Guilty. Assault. Guilty. Attempted murder. Guilty. Patricia was also found guilty of conspiracy, fraud, and trafficking. The sentencing hearing was a week later. I gave a victim impact statement. I stood at the podium, looking directly at the man who had promised to love me. "You tried to erase me," I told him. "You tried to make me believe my own mind was a trap. You sold my body for pocket change. You stole my trust. But you failed. I am still here. I am sane. And I am the one holding the keys now." The judge was merciless. He called their crimes depraved and calculating. Blake was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Patricia got 10 years. As they led Blake away, he didn't look at me. He just stared at the floor, a broken, empty shell of a man. The VIPs couldn't save him. His mother couldn't save him. I walked out of that courthouse into the sunlight. It was blindingly bright. The reporters were there, but I didn't hide. I stood tall. I got my house back. I got my trust fund back. I sued Blake for damages and won everything he had left, which wasn't much, but I took every single penny he had stashed in those offshore accounts. I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Too many ghosts. Too many squeaky floorboards that sounded like betrayal. I took a portion of the money and I gave it to Jessica. She had lost everything, and she deserved a restart. We cried together in the airport before she flew back to Ohio. "Thank you," she said. "For fighting back." "Thank you," I said. "For showing up." It has been 2 years since the trial. I live in Charlotte now. I bought a small, sunny house with a big garden. No basement. I made sure of that. I went back to teaching, but only part-time. With the rest of my time, and a significant chunk of Nana Rose's inheritance, I started a non-profit organization called the Rose Foundation. We help women who are trapped in financially abusive relationships. We provide legal counsel, emergency funds, and, most importantly, validation. We tell them, "You are not crazy. You are being used." I meet women every day who remind me of the old Heather. Women who are tired, confused, missing keys, and doubting their sanity. And I get to be the person Tanya was for me. I get to hand them the lifeline. And yes, I met someone. His name is David. He's a landscape architect. He has rough hands and a gentle voice. On our third date, I told him everything. I told him about the pills, the live stream, the trial. I told him I have trust issues that run deeper than the Mariana Trench. He didn't run. He didn't try to fix me. He just listened. "I'm in no rush," he said. "You set the pace. I'll just walk beside you. We take it slow. I manage my own finances. I have my own accounts." He respects that. He knows that my independence isn't a rejection of him, it's a celebration of me. Sometimes, I still have nightmares. I wake up at 2 a.m., heart pounding, convinced there's a camera in the corner of the room. But then I turn on the light. I check the room. It's empty. I'm safe. I learned the hard way that the people who say "I'll take care of everything" are often the ones who plan to take everything. I learned that intuition is a survival instinct, not a symptom of madness. If there is one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this: trust yourself. If something feels wrong in your gut, it is wrong. If your partner makes you feel small, confused, or crazy, pay attention. Don't swallow the pill just to keep the peace. Spit it out. Look at it. Question it. You are the protagonist of your own life. Don't let anyone else write your script, and certainly don't let them edit you out of the picture. I'm Heather. I'm a survivor. And I am finally, truly, awake. Thank you for listening to my story. Stay safe, stay smart, and always check the labels. And so, Heather's journey reminds us of a profound truth: resilience is born in the darkest moments, and even when the world seems to conspire against us, the human spirit has an extraordinary capacity to rise. This story is not just about survival, it's about reclaiming power, identity, and self-worth. It teaches us that intuition is a gift, not a flaw, and that trusting ourselves can be the first step toward breaking free from the chains of manipulation and fear. Heather's courage also highlights the importance of community and support. Sometimes, we need a Tanya in our lives, someone who refuses to give up on us, even when we've given up on ourselves. Her story is a testament to the power of friendship, persistence, and standing up for what is right, no matter how insurmountable the odds may seem. What about you? What lessons did you take from this story? If Heather's resilience inspires you, comment good below. Let's celebrate strength, awareness, and the ability to rewrite our own stories. Together, we can remind each other that no one is truly alone.